My name is Joanna. I live together with my bright and energetic first grader Nadia and my husband Alexander, who is always dependable, even if we do argue sometimes. My hobby is gardening. After giving birth to my daughter, I took a year off and then went right back to working full-time, 9 to 5 from Mondays to Fridays. My whole life I've lived in rental apartments, and none of them ever allowed pets. My husband, daughter, and I also currently live in a rental. Apart from working full-time and raising my daughter, I also volunteer at a shelter for stray cats. I first started when a friend invited me to join her, but as I continued to volunteer there, I also fell in love with cats. I want our family to adopt a cat one day. My dream is to buy a house with a garden where I can plant my favorite flowers, and where I can make a comfortable environment for a cat to live in, with cat towers and toys. The only thing that concerns me is my mother-in-law. During the summer, she wears Hawaiian shirts every day. She has a wavy hairstyle reminiscent of the 60s and a funky fashion sense. She's bold, without any sense of modesty. Alexander's childhood home, where his parents still live, is only a 10-minute walk away. My mother-in-law isn't a bad person, but she has no consideration whatsoever of how other people think or feel. For example, she's the type that will lift the shutters of a store that's about to close in order to go in and do her shopping. When there was a sports tournament in Nadia's preschool, only 2 people were allowed to attend per household because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but she still appeared. Since Nadia was their first grandchild, Alexander's parents really loved her. Alexander's mother loved shopping, but she exclusively only shops from thrift stores. She even goes as far as to dig through trash bins in order to find toys for Nadia. Those toys are always dirty. Receiving those sorts of gifts obviously doesn't make me happy. Ultimately, when Nadia's toys pile up, I'm the one who has to keep them tidy. And when I'm cleaning, I see how dirty those toys are. It obviously doesn't feel good. One day, I came home from work and saw my mother-in-law was busy doing something in our home. She had stuck large decorative stickers on the walls of the living room, as well as hammered nails to hang picture frames. She had taken pictures out of our photo albums without asking, and arranged them in a row on our bookshelves. "Oh, Joanna, welcome back." "Hello. What's this?" I like simple interiors, and I do my best to decorate as little as possible. Putting photos up in frames on your shelves just makes a room harder to clean and keep dust-free. "Joanna, you like cats, right?" The room looked a bit sad with nothing on the walls, so I put them all over. I also put up framed photos of cats. They're cute, aren't they? I married her son, but she's otherwise a stranger to me. This isn't her home. This is Alexander's, Nadia's, and mine. Where does she get the nerve to mess with people's homes without their permission? One day, when Nadia was still in preschool, I was stuck working overtime, so I had to ask my mother-in-law to pick Nadia up for me. At the time, Alexander was away on a business trip. Theoretically, the preschool has a program that allows kids to stay until 7 p.m., but because it's expensive, I decided to ask my mother-in-law for that favor instead. "I'm really sorry, but I have a meeting scheduled late this afternoon. Can you please pick up Nadia for me?" "Sure, no problem." On my way home after the meeting, I stopped by an expensive bakery to buy my mother-in-law some really fluffy and yummy bread as thanks. But when I got home, I found Nadia alone, sleeping in her room with a stuffed animal. Alexander's mother wasn't there. How could she leave Nadia alone like this? Shocked, I called my mother-in-law. "Hello, it's Joanna." "Oh, Joanna, what is it? Did you get back home from work?" "Yes. I found Nadia sleeping, but she's here alone." "You only asked me to pick her up, and she fell asleep, so I thought it'd be fine. Nadia's fine, right?" "Sure. She thinks it's okay to leave such a small child alone because she's asleep? She showers Nadia with love, and yet doesn't have this sort of common sense? Just thinking what could have potentially happened makes my blood run cold. I could have said something back to her at the moment, but I held my tongue because I didn't want to create unnecessary drama. There's no way I'll ever ask her to pick up Nadia ever again. The bread I had originally got for my mother-in-law, I ended up eating together with Nadia. Nadia moved on to elementary school, and at the beginning of the school year, there was a day that us parents could come to visit to see how our kids are in class. I went to work early, did all I could to finish my tasks for the day quickly, and headed to Nadia's elementary school. I arrived 5 minutes after the start of the parents' visit day, and as soon as I saw Nadia in her classroom, I felt my heart grow warm. "Joanna!" It was my mother-in-law's voice. Again. Only one family member per student was allowed to attend the event, but she came without asking. "Yes?" "Why are you late? Nadia was looking for you. Being late is outrageous. You should be the first parent here. Tardiness makes you a failure as a mother." I just stood next to her silent. There was no rule stating that we couldn't come a bit late. Who is she to force her mindset that I have to be there first? And calling me a failure as a mother? Suppressing my anger and discontent, I kept my calm until the end of the parent day. When I got home, I decided I can't let things carry on like this. If I continue thinking that I shouldn't cause drama, my family's happiness and peace are at risk. I married Alexander because I wanted to spend my life with him. I even underwent fertility treatment so we could have Nadia. She is Alexander's mother, not mine. Legally, we are related, but other than that, she's a stranger to me and can't force me to do anything. A few days after I made that decision, I came back home with Nadia to find toys left in the living room and to see that the walls were once again covered in stickers. I immediately began ripping them down. "Let me help." Nadia began tearing down the stickers with me. It took some time, but with my daughter's help, our living room's white walls were restored. Luckily, the stickers came off smoothly and didn't leave any traces on the wall. We also removed the frame she had hung up. I took out the nails she had hammered in, but those of course left holes that would need to be filled in. I'll have to buy supplies from the nearby home improvement store. I took out our family photos from the frame she arranged on our shelves and put the frames into a bag. The stickers we tore down, I also gathered together in a separate bag. I planned to return these all to my mother-in-law. The frames could be reused, but the stickers were useless now. They were just a sticky black lump. We also put the toys she had brought for Nadia into a cardboard box. Of course, I first checked with Nadia that it was okay with her. She told me that she didn't need any of them. That evening, I spoke to Alexander about his mother. He listened to everything I had to say. I'm so glad he's not a mama's boy. He clearly told me he prioritizes Nadia and I over her. We gathered all the toys, picture frames, wall stickers, and photographs into a box and sent them to Alexander's parents' address. Of course, we didn't tell her anything. She came over and decorated without asking, so in return, we sent back everything without asking. On the day the box reached my mother-in-law, I received a barrage of calls and texts. I ignored them all. I ignored them because I planned on explaining everything to her once some time passed. She also tried visiting our home, but when I saw that it was her on the security camera screen, I didn't open the door. There was another reason why I was ignoring all contact from her. The reason was I didn't want her to get in the way of the preparations we were making to move into my dream home. Since we were moving soon, we had hired a locksmith to come and swap the locks on all of our doors. Because of that, my mother-in-law couldn't come in, even though she had a spare key. After visiting countless open houses with Alexander and Nadia, we found the perfect home with a garden, and I couldn't be any happier. Alexander and Nadia agreed to adopting a cat, and we managed to get a loan to help cover the house payments. My heart danced at the thought that my family was entering a new chapter of happiness. I later found out from Alexander's father that when my mother-in-law couldn't get in touch with us or enter our apartment, she became so depressed that she wouldn't get out of bed all day. About us sending things back, my father-in-law said, I want to apologize for the way my wife would enter your house and make a mess without permission. I warned her many times, but she never listened. I'm very sorry. Could you please forgive us? We're currently busy preparing to move, so I don't have time to contact her. Not knowing our plans, he replied in a surprised voice, Moving? Where are you moving? Alexander will let you know soon. The day that we were going to move into my dream home finally was upon us. I used 3 of my paid days off so I could get everything done. The movers we hired did a great job. After we finished moving, I got to putting everything away and wiping the floor when I heard that abominable voice from behind me. So, this is where you moved, huh? It's a nice house. It seems like you have good taste when it comes to these things, huh, Joanna? Alexander had just told his mother our new address, and here she was. Oh, I heard you've been having trouble getting out of bed these days. Whose fault do you think that is? I wonder. She then blatantly revealed how she felt about me. I've thought this all along, but there's really no way for me to like you. You've never thanked me for anything I've done for you. She began rambling on. Once I finished wiping the floor clean, I stood up. I'm going to make some coffee, so let's have a chat. Would you like your coffee hot or cold? Hot. I directed my mother-in-law to the dining table, pulled out a chair and gestured her to sit. I then made a steaming hot cup of coffee, though I didn't want to say it. It's very hot, so please be careful. I warned her, but she steadily sipped on the coffee while complaining about how hot it was. I poured myself some of the hot coffee into a cup full of ice and sat down in front of her. Why are you here? Did you come to put stickers or hammer nails into our walls? I did that because I thought you'd like it. Because you thought I'd like it without asking me first? That was our house, not yours. I was wrong for not saying anything all this time. But I'm going to use this opportunity now. I want us to distance our families from each other. I want distance. I kept my wording soft, but what I really wanted to say is that I never want anything to do with her ever again. You once left Nadia home alone when she was sleeping, right? That really shocked me. If something had happened to her, if it had, I would have hated you for the rest of my life. Nadia doesn't need those toys anymore either. She said so herself, which is why we sent them back. I sent the stickers and pictures back because we don't need them either. After I vented some of my anger, my mother-in-law replied in a way that showed how crazy she was. There's really no way for me to like you. I have a granddaughter now, so I don't need someone like you in my family anymore. Leave my son's home immediately. My mother-in-law jumped up and growled at me. I have no choice. Fine. Nadia is with her tutor now, so I'll pick her up when she's done, and then we'll leave. I'll text Alexander about it too. Here, I decided to have some fun. Anyone with common sense would know what I said next wasn't true, but common sense is something my mother-in-law didn't have. We took out a loan for this house under your name. The loan was for $300,000. It's a 35-year loan, so that makes about $700 per month. You'll have to pay up. Huh? What are you talking about? Why would I pay? It's your son's home, so we put it under your name, with the idea that you would move in eventually. Do you get it? You need to pass through a background check in order to take out a loan, during which they check whether one can afford to eventually pay back the loan. My mother-in-law lived off her pension, so of course she'd never be able to. There's no way I have that sort of money. My mother-in-law, who had no idea of the terms of the loan or how it worked, was in tears as she took my theatrics to heart. Please, enjoy living in this house on your own. That night, after picking Nadia up, her, Alexander, and I went to a hotel in town. It was Nadia's first time sleeping in a hotel, so she was super excited. I got a massage at the hotel spa, during which I felt my tiredness and stress from the day melt away. I wonder what my mother-in-law was doing in our home now. I imagined it dreamily. I said a dirty lie to my mother-in-law, but Alexander accepted what I had done. He repeated that he treasures Nadia and I more than his mother. After spending the night in the hotel, we returned to our home at around noon. Alexander's mother was nowhere to be found. The story of the loan probably made her desperate. The next day, Alexander's father visited. He had come to apologize. We were about to explain to him that the loan isn't actually in Alexander's mother's name, but he already understood that. He had decided not to tell his wife the truth. At the time, I told Alexander's mother that the loan payments would be made from my bank account, so she would have to transfer me $700 per month. My mother-in-law actually listened and continues to take from her meager savings to transfer $700 to my bank account every month. This was a bit dirty of me, but I thought this payback was only natural after the trouble she caused us. Alexander's father also took that with a smile, saying that the money was going to Alexander when they one day pass away anyway. Like that, I was able to get rid of all my ill will against my mother-in-law. But I decided to let my revenge continue for a bit longer. For now, I'll appreciate the boost to my savings. And with that, I want to live a happy life with the family I love and my newly adopted cat.
During my wedding, my mother-in-law insulted me as fat and chubby, unfit for her handsome son. And then, chaos ensued as my relatives interjected.
I am Samantha Ayers. I'm a 30-year-old white-collar worker. Since I work for a local company in the area, I have never left my parents' house. My mother passed away when I was young, and I was raised by my father and grandparents. My home was both a store and a place to live, and my grandparents ran a little shop downstairs. After my mother's death, my father, who was a cook, quit his job and suddenly decided to become a baker to carry on the family legacy. Even as a young child, I understood why my father started a bakery. It was to say goodbye and welcome back to me. His bread, though simple, was delicious and quickly became popular in the neighborhood. Regular customers, whenever they saw me, would kindly greet me with welcome back and is school fun? Of course, there were days when I felt lonely and couldn't sleep because my mother was no longer with us. But because I received so much love and support from my father and grandparents, as well as from many others who watched over me, I never felt unhappy. Even with all that, I eventually got married. My partner, Kevin Turner, is a colleague from work. Kevin is quite the athlete, being part of the company's club team. He's always hungry, so when I offered him some of my father's bread from time to time, he really appreciated it.
Isn't it heavenly to eat this kind of bread every day?
He, being the emotional type, felt it was important to share this feeling with the baker. So he visited our house and became friendly with my father. My father, who always said,
"If I wasn't a baker, I'd have wanted a big dog,"
seems to adore Kevin's large size and honesty. On weekends, he would take Kevin fishing or to his favorite bar and go around bragging.
"That's my son."
I want to go on a date with Kevin too.
No, today, I've decided to treat Kevin to some delicious calamari. Stop it, don't fight over me.
On weekends, we would act out such scenes and hang out together like a real family of 3. So, when Kevin proposed to me, I was truly overjoyed. But there was one problem for us. 6 months until the wedding. After planning the seating for our wedding, I was supposed to move into Kevin's apartment, where he lived alone. So on weekends, I cleaned his room to make space for myself and cooked for him because he was busy with club team activities. Just when I was enjoying the sweet feeling of our pre-married life, another person started to visit this room, dampening my spirits. Kevin's mother. It smells a bit like bread in here. Are you taking baths regularly? These were the first things my mother-in-law said when she came in boldly using her spare key without even buzzing the intercom. Sorry, but our place smells like freshly baked bread all the way to the bath. Well, your bread always smells a bit cheap, doesn't it? Why don't you advise your father to focus more on quality ingredients or keep up with the trends? Is the hazelnut for the hazelnut cream properly imported from Europe? Are you using organically grown fruits? We actually buy the hazelnut cream from a local shop. The fruit is from the nearby grocer. It's not good to leave everything to such people, you know. If the business fails, don't come crying to us. Okay. I nod along and ignore my ignorant but prideful mother-in-law's lectures. At first, I used to argue back every time, but it was just tiring when I took it seriously, so I stopped. Even when I accept her criticism without resistance, she seems dissatisfied and throws even more sarcastic remarks at me, to the point of being exasperating. I wonder why Kevin chose such an unimpressive girl, especially when I raised him to be a smart and talented athlete. Yes, it's strange, isn't it? Don't just agree, you need to work harder too. I still don't accept you as my daughter-in-law. Okay. I wonder why Kevin grew up under such a mean-spirited person. With a face as round as the Michelin Man, I wonder if she's storing bread in her stomach. Her arms are like pieces of torn bread. She bullies me every time we meet using such childish words. I feel it is disrespectful not only to me but also to the bread. When I offered her my father's bread because she said she wanted to try it, she only took one bite and left it. She flaunts around, eating a $5 Danish pastry bought from a famous hotel as if to show off. Kevin's father is pretty much the same in character. He works for a company with several branches in the state. A few years ago, this area was selected as a new frontier, and Kevin's father was appointed as the branch manager. I think it's really cool how hard he works to be successful and make connections with important people in the community. However, their condescending attitude towards our little bakery home is really getting to me. I mean, I can handle their blunt behavior, but the stress is slowly piling up. Kevin lives alone despite having his parents home within commuting distance, as he's grown wary of their behavior. While he stands up to their snide remarks as much as he can, it's unbearable when he's not around. Honestly, if it weren't them being Kevin's parents, I wouldn't want to know them or have anything to do with them. Then one day, we were summoned by Kevin's father to come to their house for a discussion.
Here's the guest list for the wedding.
Upon our arrival, my father-in-law forcefully hands over the list. There are about 50 names neatly lined up on it.
Who are these people? Aside from relatives, I don't know any of them. Isn't it wonderful? Those are clients from work who insisted on attending.
My father-in-law is beaming proudly at Kevin, whose eyes widen in surprise.
Why do we need to invite so many of your associates? First off, we've only rented a venue for 120 people, so it's impossible. Just reduce the number of guests from the bride's side then. Huh? But if there aren't many seats from the groom's side, it wouldn't look good, would it? The eldest son's wedding is also a way to demonstrate the family's power and elevate our status. I've never heard of such a thing.
As Kevin glares at his father, his mother interjects, chastising him. No, this is a tradition from long ago. As you're the eldest son of our family, there are many people who require greetings. Unlike Samantha, who grew up in a family-run business.
That's not how...
Next to Kevin, trembling with anger, I gaze at them with cold eyes. I don't want to become such terrible parents like them. Somehow I glanced through the list made by my father-in-law. Then I pulled Kevin's arm. It's okay, Kevin. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, I understand. For the groom's side, including your friends, Kevin, we'll prepare 70 seats. We'll have 10 seats for our company colleagues and 40 seats for the bride's side. Is that all right?
Samantha? Well, surprisingly aware, aren't we? Don't forget the difference in status even on the day of.
Yes. I replied honestly and left my in-laws' house, pulling Kevin, who wanted to say something to me.
I'm sorry, Samantha. I promised that we would only have a wedding with people who would truly bless us.
In the car on the way back, Kevin seems to be regretful. Okay, no matter what, those who don't bless us the most will always be in the third row. Besides, when I looked at the guest list, it didn't seem all bad.
Huh?
Yeah, there are a few familiar names on the guest list. I'll show the strength of a local bakery owner's daughter. After looking down on people like that, there's no way I'll just obediently follow as a quiet wife. I'll give them a taste of their own medicine. I've endured any bullying, thinking my father, who looked forward to my marriage with Kevin, would be sad. But it seems I was mistaken. Their pride and malice seem bottomless. If I don't fight, I'll be treated like a slave for life. Seeing me burning with a fighting spirit, Kevin is taken aback. And then he laughs, saying,
That's the Samantha I know. Samantha, can I make a suggestion?
What?
Wouldn't it be better to register our marriage after the reception?
Huh? I'm a bit surprised by his unexpected suggestion, but his eyes are dead serious. Got it. I don't know what he's up to, but I've decided to trust him, the one I'll spend the rest of my life with. And the wedding day of our two families arrived. The ceremony went smoothly, with flower petals showering down the aisle, and then we moved on to the reception. After changing only my hair and makeup, I entered with the groom. Samantha! Samantha's so cute!
Hey, the bakery's signature girl!
Cheers and innocent banter filled the entire venue, not just from the bride's side, but also from the groom's. I couldn't help but smirk as I saw the astonished expression of my father-in-law and the disdainful look of my mother-in-law from the bridal platform. My father-in-law boasted of his connections, including to the many landlords and influential figures deeply rooted in the area. But unfortunately, they were all customers of the bakery. For me, they were familiar faces since elementary school days, friendly uncles and aunts. Samantha, you've grown up to be quite the beauty. Aunt Sally.
Can you believe it? Samantha, who used to make our Keith cry after fighting with him, is getting married.
Uncle Larry. Samantha, who used to catch cicadas and stuff them tightly into her insect cage, has become such a graceful girl. Aunt Terence.
I can't believe that Samantha, who used to try eating mushrooms in the park, turned into a girl who looks great in such a nice dress.
Uncle Bill. Everyone is talking nostalgically, but weren't there any more lovely anecdotes? Kevin, listening beside me, looks warm and fuzzy, but my face is beet red.
When the director invited me to the wedding, I actually wanted to decline, but then since I saw the bride was Samantha, I couldn't say no.
Seeing everyone saying this made me laugh unintentionally. So now they're my guests. While my father-in-law and mother-in-law were pouring the drinks, the invited guests seemed to be talking about my childhood. They're both smiling on the surface, but their stomachs are probably churning. They got a taste of my family connections in a situation where they were trying to flex their muscles. My colleagues and bosses at work are also all fans of my father, who brings in bread during the busy season. They seem to be having a lot of fun around my father at the bride's table. So, although there was a lot of speculation going on behind the scenes, the reception ended with the bride's speech in a relaxed atmosphere. We presented bouquets of gratitude to both sets of parents, and then it was time for the groom's father's speech. However, that's when the biggest incident occurred. Kevin's mother snatched the microphone and caused a scene. Ignoring the bustling venue, she began her speech with her proud, melodious voice. Our Kevin has been a prodigy since childhood, excelling in everything he does and being like a treasure to us as a couple. Well, it might be a bit too much parental pride, but it's a lovely sentiment. However, I do regret not teaching him a bit more about choosing women. Huh? As everyone knows, the bride Samantha is restless, rough, and unable to listen to others' words properly. It's her once-in-a-lifetime moment, yet her upper arms are sagging so much. Are you bullying me in front of 120 guests by twisting the heartwarming stories everyone tried to share? Even my father-in-law sitting next to me has a pale face and his mouth agape. But Samantha is the one Kevin chose. I'll make sure to re-educate her as the new mother figure. Right, Samantha? Huh? My mother-in-law suddenly asked for my agreement, and I had to speak up. She was waiting for my response with intense eyes, but I couldn't just nod. My own mother is the only mother I have, and I don't want a mother-in-law with a bad personality. However, I also don't want to stoop to her level by getting into a heated argument. Kevin is a wonderful man who prefers rough and chubby types. Thanks to that, I'm happy, right? Right? As I jokingly talk to Kevin, he strains to smile, even though he's clearly puzzled.
Samantha is the most beautiful woman in the world. I'm sorry, my mother's eyes are so blind.
Kevin, You're being deceived by this woman. Mother-in-law, read the room. At that moment, a low, raspy voice rang out from next to me.
Is that all you have to say?
My father glares at my mother-in-law with a look I've never seen before.
It's true that my daughter may lack some femininity because she didn't have a mother, but she has grown up to be a kind and considerate person. If you insult my daughter like this, I won't forgive you.
What can a mere baker do?
Father-in-law's bread fills people's stomachs and hearts. Unlike you, who can only look down on others.
Huh? My mother-in-law freezes under Kevin's stare. He snatches the mic from her hand and, after a pause, turns to the guests with a terrifyingly perfect smile.
Thank you for being here today to celebrate with us, even with your busy schedules. I apologize deeply for any distressing scenes we may have caused. I'm thrilled to introduce Samantha, my wonderful wife. I know some of you may have worries, especially considering her less than ideal in-laws. That's right, that's right.
A jeer comes from the groom's friend's table. My in-laws look nervously in that direction.
But please, rest assured, today marks the end of my association with them. I'm marrying into Samantha's family and taking her last name.
Huh?
Kevin!
The whole venue buzzes with surprise. Even I, who had no prior knowledge of this, am left speechless. Was this why Kevin had put off registering the marriage?
I can't allow that to happen.
That's right. Of course.
Huh? We don't need your consent.
What? Kevin decisively cuts off his parents. Then he lowers his head deeply to my father.
Samantha's father, even though I'm just an ordinary man, would you accept me as part of your family?
The venue falls silent. All eyes are on my father, but he doesn't seem shaken. It's as if he already knew Kevin's feelings.
I've always considered you as part of the family, Kevin. Please take care of this spirited daughter of mine as well.
My father nods his head.
Congratulations!
A loud cheer erupts from the groom's side. This triggers a wave of applause and congratulatory messages. Seeing this, tears involuntarily well up in my eyes. I wonder if my mother somewhere is watching the happiest moment of my life. Swept up in the whirlwind of blessings, the pleas and protests of my in-laws are drowned out. The next day, we submitted our marriage registration at the municipal office. Although Kevin didn't become an adopted son-in-law, he did actually take on my last name. Though I'm a bit worried that he might regret it in the heat of the moment, he's looking at his newly changed driver's license with a relieved expression. It seems he consulted with my father beforehand about taking on my surname. Despite the usual behavior of my in-laws, he showed sincerity in wanting to marry me, even going as far as to kneel down. My father grew to like Kevin even more due to this sincere attitude. There's a mix of happiness and sadness in the bond that has formed between the two more than I imagined. But one thing is for sure, my husband is the best partner. On the other hand, the anger of my in-laws who felt they had lost their son was beyond measure. They threatened to sever ties if Kevin changed his surname, but now they seem flustered since Kevin accepted it. Moreover, it seems they have angered many of the wedding guests by insulting me.
We'll stop doing business with that household because we can't trust them.
I won't recommend this company to my acquaintances. Not only direct rejections, but rumors like the manager there is shady spread like wildfire, causing sales at the branch office to plummet. In this area where obligations and human connections are highly valued, networks can either be a source of strength or a vulnerability. My in-laws are stupid for not knowing that and using others to show their power. My distressed in-laws at one moment came to us as a couple in tears, but then they would flip and threaten or act bewildered and confused. But my husband had no intention of forgiving them at all, and I could finally relax and hide behind him. In the end, my father-in-law, summoned to the headquarters, was reprimanded for his misconduct and apparently demoted by the director. He seems to be working while trembling with humiliation, being looked down upon by subordinates who are younger than he is. Their cherished son was stolen by their hated daughter-in-law, causing my father-in-law to lose his position and my mother-in-law to fall into despair. Furthermore, it seems that their own relatives who were invited to the wedding treated them like outcasts, and Kevin's friends embarrassed his mother, leaving them feeling lost. It turns out Kevin had a younger sister. She seems fed up with the whole ordeal and hasn't returned home from her boyfriend's place. Everything they boasted about has vanished, leaving only a house filled with the worst atmosphere. Both my husband and I can only laugh bitterly at their self-inflicted downfall. And then, 5 years later,
Dad, the rolls are ready. Next, could you help me with this? Sure thing.
in a small workshop, 2 men are bustling around taking care of things. On weekends, my husband started learning how to bake bread under my father's guidance. He really wants to become a baker right away, but since he's also a key player at his job, he's decided to continue as an office worker for a little longer. I quit my job when I got pregnant, and now I manage my father's bread sales online while taking care of our 2 children. My husband started the online sales because he didn't want my father's delicious bread to go to waste. With its simple and rustic charm, my father's bread is easy to sell frozen, and sales have been quite good. Nowadays in my hometown, our children happily munch on the bread baked by my husband and father. These peaceful days are the greatest treasure to me.
I cared for my ill mother-in-law, and after she died, my husband tried to kick me out. As he wished, I left, and he ended up facing the consequences.
My name is Melinda. I'm turning 51 this year. Today, I officially became a single person after divorcing my husband, Mark. We were married for 27 years. I never imagined I would go through a divorce so late in life. But I don't regret it, because having a husband like Mark was worse. Let me tell you my story today. I got married at 26 and gave birth to a son the following year. When I was 48 and got a job, my only son left home and I was living alone with my husband. Both my husband and I were full-time employees, so our incomes were sufficient. So I was thinking, now we just need to save for retirement and enjoy our remaining years, imagining a joyful retirement ahead, my heart dancing with anticipation. But suddenly, the unexpected happened.
Melinda, my mother collapsed.
A call from my husband came while I was having lunch at work. My mother-in-law lived just a few minutes' walk from our house. She was usually an active person with many friends and acquaintances, and she treated me, her daughter-in-law, very well. She always boasted about her good health, proudly claiming she hadn't caught a cold in years. Why did something like this happen to her? I immediately headed to the hospital with my husband to hear the doctor's assessment of her condition.
Your mother has had a stroke. Fortunately, because the time from onset to transport was short, she survived. However,
the doctor hesitated as he told us the reality.
I think it is very likely that she will be paralyzed in some way in the future and will need nursing care.
That day, when we returned home, my husband and I discussed my mother-in-law's future. My husband spoke first.
Melinda, I'm counting on you. Please, take care of my mother.
He pleaded with me fervently, almost kneeling before me. Of course, I couldn't give an immediate answer. I knew well that caregiving is not as easy as it sounds, while also working. Because my own deceased mother also nursed a sick person at home in a similar manner. When my father passed away, my mother even said, "I feel relieved rather than sad." Caregiving is indeed that challenging. But despite my confusion, my husband continues to plead with me.
My mother would be happier if you, as a woman, took care of her rather than me. This is something I can't do.
What my husband said was reasonable. Indeed, my mother-in-law is a woman, so she might resist being taken care of by her son. Moreover, relying solely on external helpers would be too costly. There was only one option left. I understand. Then I'll take care of your mother. My husband took my hand, crying tears of gratitude, saying,
Thank you, thank you.
And so I quit my job to take care of my mother-in-law. When my mother-in-law was discharged from the hospital, she was left with paralysis in her limbs and a mild speech impediment, making it difficult for her to go to the bathroom or eat on her own. I'm sorry, Melinda, it's all because of me. My mother-in-law always seemed apologetic, but I was happy to be able to help her. During my busiest periods, my mother-in-law willingly took care of my son and genuinely cherished him. Thanks to her, my son still adores his grandmother. I believe my son's kindness and sociability are greatly influenced by his grandmother. Mother-in-law, please don't hold back from now on. I'm helping you because I want to. With those words, my mother-in-law looked genuinely happy. I felt that caregiving was an exchange of hearts. We laughed and enjoyed each other's company every day, and I sometimes thought that a life of caregiving was not so bad. However, at the same time, my husband gradually started acting strangely.
Hey, Melinda, are you really taking care of her? She's my mother, you know. What's wrong with this food? Aren't you being too lazy, even though you're always at home? You wouldn't understand the hardships of a working person, would you?
He began saying things like that. My husband had always been rather quiet and gentle in tone. Both my mother-in-law and I couldn't hide our surprise at his sudden change in behavior. But my mother-in-law fiercely objected to his words. Why would you say such things to Melinda? She scolded him in my place. My husband was naturally a bit ashamed to be scolded by his mother, but after a few days he returned to his old self. Those days continued. Eventually my husband said, We can manage with $500 for living expenses from now on. Since you're always at home, if it's not enough, do some side jobs and figure it out yourself. Something like that. The reasoning behind the $500 was that my husband's pocket money was also $500, so it seemed fair for me to have the same. Reluctantly, when I tried to dip into the savings I had from when I was working, my mother-in-law said, Melinda, please use my secret savings. Don't tell that child about it. She entrusted me with a bank book containing my father-in-law's inheritance. I declined such a thing out of guilt. Please keep your savings for the future. That would be best. I stubbornly refused to accept it. My mother-in-law had always been on my side. She watched over me and cared for me as if she were my real mother. It was on a winter day, the third year of caregiving for her, that my mother-in-law passed away suffering from pneumonia. During the funeral, I couldn't stop crying more than my husband because I felt lonely being separated from my mother-in-law. Since my husband is an only child, there weren't any major disputes over inheritance, and once everything was settled, we were supposed to return to our usual daily life. However, as soon as my mother-in-law passed away, my husband suddenly said, When are you going to start working? And directed a cold gaze at me. What do you mean, when? What are you talking about? How long are you going to be unemployed and depend on me? I don't intend to support you. Are these words appropriate for a wife who devoted herself to caregiving for his mother to the best of her ability? I sacrificed my job and a considerable amount of my freedom to dedicate to caregiving. Wait a minute. I didn't quit my job because I wanted to. Didn't I quit to take care of her? Hey, are you blaming your unemployment on my mother? It's like the conversation isn't even connecting. Can I really endure being constantly told off by such a husband? With that in mind, I desperately tried to find a job. However, it's not easy for a woman in her 50s with only a bookkeeping qualification to find a job. And then my husband said, Don't think about part-time work. That's just being lazy. So the type of employment I was looking for was full-time or contract employment. That only raised the bar for employment even higher. When I received rejection letters one after another and felt depressed at home, my husband said to me with a sidelong glance, Do you really think there are companies out there hiring someone who's been unemployed for so long? He said it in a mocking tone. My unemployment was because I was caregiving, right? Why do you have to say something like that to me? I desperately tried to argue back to my husband while holding back tears. But then my husband said something outrageous. Yeah, more excuses. The world isn't so lenient that you'll get a job just like that. If you plan to keep leeching off me forever, then get out. He snorted arrogantly as if he were in the right. That day, I couldn't sleep from frustration and misery. I cried all night long. And after crying until my tears dried up, I made up my mind. I should just leave such a husband. From then on, I stopped talking to my husband. To avoid his nagging, I took care of everything perfectly at home while diligently job hunting. One day, about 2 months into this routine, my husband came home seeming irritated or agitated. And then, he threw this at me.
Hey, parasite. How long are you going to stay unemployed? I told you to leave.
His words were sharper and more pointed than usual, but I wasn't about to back down. Do you understand your own position?
Huh?
My husband sounded dumbfounded for my unexpected counterattack.
What do you mean?
I said, do you understand your position? Can you manage on your own if I leave? What about the mortgage on this house? You've never done any housework before, is that okay? Ever since I quit my job to take care of my husband, I've been paying the mortgage from my savings. Of course, that's because my husband reduced the household expenses to just $500. Over nearly 3 years, I've paid around $40,000 in monthly repayments of $1,300. Even though we used to split the payments, I've been covering them all for the past few years. Do you still think you're in a position to tell me to leave? After I politely explained, my husband immediately became flustered.
No, I contributed money to the household too.
Huh? You think you can say that with just $500? As an adult, have some shame. My husband, who couldn't utter a word in response to my words, seemed to slowly begin to understand the situation.
Wait, isn't there less stuff in the house?
He finally noticed, huh? Men can be so clueless, it's frustrating. You were the one who told me to leave, so I was getting ready. Well, this house is yours and mine, so if you want to live in it, I will charge you a certain amount of money.
Huh? What do you mean?
That's right. I handed my husband the divorce papers swiftly. The part for me was already filled out, and I had signatures from acquaintances as witnesses. All that was left was for my husband to sign and date. What a prepared wife, don't you think?
Wait a minute. Isn't a divorce too sudden?
Sudden? After being unemployed for so long, being called a parasite, and being told to leave? Don't act like you didn't have the intention to divorce. I simply chose to leave after your words that day. So why are you so flustered?
I didn't mean it that way.
Oh, really? Then could you tell me what you did mean by it? My husband broke into a cold sweat. Why is he so nervous?
It's just that, I wanted you to get back into the workforce as soon as possible. I was being tough on you. I was trying to toughen you up so you wouldn't just become a stay-at-home wife.
He was trying to sound reasonable. He looked relieved, as if he had come up with a perfect excuse to convince me. But really, who would be fooled by those words? That's what I really thought. And he didn't realize it. He was digging his own grave. Well, I see. Well, thank you for that. Thanks to you, I've been able to live without relying on a foolish husband. I appreciate it. This is also thanks to you. Thank you so much. I said with a smile, and his face sagged even more.
Well, I guess that's good.
The arrogance he had just displayed was gone, replaced with a pathetic expression as he altered between looking at the divorce papers I brought and at me. Wow, I'm really happy. Now I can feel confident about parting ways with you. As I spoke joyfully, his face became even more filled with despair. And as if resigned to his fate, he muttered,
Divorce. Can't you wait? If you leave me now, what will I do?
I couldn't feel even a shred of sympathy for my husband, who seemed on the verge of tears. But I wasn't hurtless either. Shall I just listen to his side of the story for now? Why? Isn't it a relief that the parasite is gone? Then my husband said, as if squeezing the words out.
Actually, I, lost my job.
Yeah, I know. As soon as I responded, my husband looked at me as if he were seeing a ghost.
Huh? You knew? How?
You took my insurance card without permission, didn't you?
Well.
The beginning of this was like this. One day I witnessed my husband taking my insurance card from my wallet. I wondered about it, but by that time I had already stopped talking to my husband, so I thought it might be a good opportunity to leave being under household and get my own insurance. During my job search, I went to inquire about health insurance, but when I went to the corner, it seemed that my husband had already been removed from his workplace insurance.
Please expedite the procedures for health insurance. If you continue like this, you'll end up uninsured.
That's what they told me. I thought I was still covered as a dependent, but did my husband maliciously remove me from it? I thought so, but the situation was a bit different. My husband's company went bankrupt due to financial difficulties. It happened right around the time of his remarks about leaving me. After that, for 2 months, my husband received unemployment benefits and started job hunting just like me. Perhaps he was too confident because he had been in a managerial position at his previous company. He thought he could secretly find another job and return the insurance card without me noticing, thinking everything would be fine. But reality wasn't so forgiving. My husband, lacking qualifications or notable skills at the age of 50, struggled to find a job. His frustration and anxiety only intensified his attacks on me.
I was so worried about the declining performance of my company, so I took it out on you. After the bankruptcy, I didn't know what to do, and finding a new job became so difficult, so I ended up saying even more horrible things to you. I'm truly sorry. But if you leave me now, what am I supposed to do?
However, deep down, I just wanted to become estranged from this husband of mine as soon as possible. Alright, you figure it out on your own. I'm not your mother, you know.
But you took care of my mom, so to me you're kind of like a mother too.
What kind of reasoning is that? I feel like his brain is melting from the stress of unemployment. But my husband in front of me showed no sign of joking, making me even more scared. It's not a joke. Sorry, but I've got a job starting next month. It's going to take me an hour to get there and I need to move. I don't have the luxury of taking care of you. Well then, goodbye. Leaving my husband in a daze, I packed my belongings into a suitcase and left the house. My husband and I divorced afterward. He had been resisting the divorce all along, but it was our son who managed to persuade him.
I've heard the whole story, but it's your own fault, Dad. Stop making a fool of yourself, or Grandma will cry in heaven, so just stop it.
My husband agreed to the divorce because of that one word from our son. I sold the house and paid off the loan. Since I paid more of the loan, I was to get all the remaining cash. It was my mother-in-law who paid most of the mortgage on the house while I was a caregiver, although she didn't tell my husband. That's because my mother-in-law wanted to help me. I hope you'll let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Moved by those words, I confessed that I was struggling with the mortgage payments. In response, my mother-in-law offered to use the money from her bank account to pay off the loan. Of course, to avoid exceeding the annual gift tax limit of $11,000, we adjusted it, and my mother-in-law ended up paying nearly $30,000 in total. So technically, the money left from paying off the loan might also belong to my husband. But my mother-in-law said this. This is a secret between you and me, Melinda. A woman should keep 1 or 2 secrets from her husband. So I've decided to keep this to myself and not tell anyone. Come to think of it, my mother-in-law once told me, keep your savings safe for a rainy day. Maybe she foresaw that this would happen. Or maybe I'm just overthinking things. As for my husband, he spent his meager savings and moved to a cheap apartment. I heard he's doing odd jobs while looking for a job. It's pathetic that he hardly had any savings, even though he only put $500 towards the house. He probably spent it all on gambling to vent his frustration from being unemployed. Thank you. I'm grateful because of you, I said to my son. Then my son started to speak a little awkwardly.
Actually, I received a letter from Grandma just before she passed away. The handwriting was shaky, so I struggled to decipher it. It expressed gratitude towards you, Mom, and it said that if anything happened, I should protect you, Mom. I never imagined that my mother-in-law would give such a letter to her grandson. Come to think of it, she asked me to send letters and postcards a few times, but I never thought to look at the recipient because I thought it would be rude. My mother-in-law really cared about me, didn't she?
I couldn't help but shed tears in front of my son. My son laughed with a comforting expression, saying,
Hey, why are you suddenly crying? You're such a crybaby, Mom.
His face resembled his grandma's, who always listened to my stories with a smile, and I couldn't hold back my tears again.
My mother-in-law made fun of me for going to karaoke on my own, saying I must be horrible at singing.
Anna Delcy, you've been isolated. Huh? See? My mother-in-law took out her pocket planner and pointed out the birthdays of my husband, my elder daughter, and my younger daughter, who I had just given birth to. Luna and Lynn were both born in September. Kyle was also. But you... She flipped a few pages and pointed again. Only you are born in July. You've been isolated. Isolated? I just gave birth to Lynn 2 days earlier. Listening to what my mother-in-law had to say when she came to visit the hospital after I gave birth to Lynn left me stunned. Not a single word of congratulations. She just told me that I've been isolated. My name is Anna Delcy. I'm 33 years old. I just gave birth to my second daughter, Lynn. I first met my husband, Kyle, when we were in college, and we got married after we graduated. With my 2 daughters, Luna and Lynn, I have a very fulfilling family life. The only issue is my mother-in-law. She's the type of person that has to be with someone else at all times. Whether she's going to the store or even to the bathroom, someone has to be with her. When she goes out for lunch, she always looks around, and if she sees someone eating on their own, she'll laugh and yell out, Look, that person has been isolated and is now eating all on their own. They don't even have a single friend. I didn't understand her reasoning at all. I enjoyed going out to eat on my own, and in general, I was the type of person who really valued my alone time. Kyle's father passed away around the time Kyle and I got married, so his mother immediately asked to move in with us. The reasoning she gave us was that if we isolated her, everyone around would laugh at us. That reason made no sense to me, but we decided that she'll need someone to take care of her soon enough, and that if we made a room for her on the second floor of our home, we would be able to live together without being too involved in each other's private lives. It didn't take much time for me to understand that was a giant mistake. In no time, she began using her isolation mindset to harass me. If I went to the movies alone, she would say I'm probably going to watch movies that I'm too embarrassed to watch with others. If I went to a cafe alone, she would say that anyone who sees me would think I'm upset at my family. She had opinions about everything I did. She couldn't grasp why someone would ever do anything on their own. Objectively speaking, her logic made no sense, but she was unwavering. I enjoyed doing things on my own, so having my actions always treated like they were bad was very frustrating and tiring. I was just getting used to handling her way of thinking, when one day there was an incident. Luna had just started elementary school. That day I picked Lynn from preschool and returned home. My mother-in-law came down from the second floor in a flurry. Hey! I heard you didn't sign Luna up for the after-school kids club. After-school kids club? I didn't think it was a big deal, so it took me some time to understand what was the issue. Yeah, it was optional after all. Luna was going to piano lessons on the weekend, which overlapped with some of the club meetings. If you don't sign her up, she'll be isolated by all the kids in the neighborhood. Kids who are always on their own either won't be able to make friends, or they'll become retarded. Become retarded? I cringed at her use of that word. Luna says she wants to learn piano. The kids club meets on the same day as the lessons, so she can't do both. That's why we didn't sign her up. I tried to explain in an easy-to-understand way. You really are defective, aren't you? When you go to the supermarket on your own, I'm sure everyone that sees you probably thinks that you're alone because you're horrible at cooking. To think you're trying to make my adorable granddaughter defective like you are? You're a curse to the family. After rambling on for a while, my mother-in-law returned to her room while sobbing. Defective? Retarded? A curse to the family? The amount of labels she was putting on me just because I occasionally did things on my own made me shudder. I tried talking to Kyle about it, but he just said,
She's just that type of person. Even if you do your best to convince her, she won't change. Luna wants to learn piano, so we should let her.
He didn't seem to take it very seriously. But he's not wrong. His mother may be like that, but our little family is happy. That's thanks to my husband and daughters. For the sake of my family, I decided I would just deal with what my mother-in-law was always saying. But from that day on, my mother-in-law decided that I was trying to isolate our entire family from society. She harassed not just because she disliked me, but also because she wanted to exorcise a demon from the family. One day, I overheard my mother-in-law on the phone with Kyle's elder sister. Overheard. It'd be more correct to say she spoke at a volume so that I have no choice but to hear. I was in the kitchen washing the dishes. My mother-in-law was using the landline in the living room, which was right next to the kitchen. There was no way I wouldn't overhear. The other day, I saw Kyle's wife going to karaoke alone. She was probably going to practice singing. I stopped washing the dishes because my hands began shaking. How closely was she watching over me? When did she see me? It's true I occasionally go on my own to a karaoke box in the area. I've never felt guilty about it. I go because of my mother-in-law's bullying. I go to avoid my mother-in-law's attacks and talks of isolation. I belt out songs as loudly as I can to de-stress so I can keep my sanity at home. Each time I go, I also have a gin and tonic. I consider it my alone time and a precious chance to recharge. I go for an hour each time and it's located in a somewhat hidden corner of the local shopping center, so I didn't think she would ever see me. My mother-in-law continued. She's definitely horrible at singing and is practicing so she can get good enough for people to not isolate her. She snickered. It was a shock to hear that. She had been watching me secretly, but my emotions exceeded that. I felt how condescendingly she viewed me because I did things on my own. I felt embarrassed for enjoying alone time. And I felt ridiculed for my hobby. I couldn't take it anymore. Hey! My mother-in-law hung up the phone. You heard? Eavesdropping like that, you really are rude. Eavesdropping, how perverse. Weren't you the one talking in a way for me to overhear? I wanted to contradict what she said, but I instead asked directly. About seeing me to the karaoke box alone? If you heard, then you know what I said. If you wanted to practice singing, you could have told me and we'd go together. Going in secret. What were you trying to keep hidden? It doesn't matter if you aren't good at singing. That's why no one can trust you. Oh well, you'll get punished for your actions. Just wait and see. After saying this, she laughed and went up to her room. I had a bad feeling about this. Just wait and see. It felt like she was cursing me. What's going to happen? As I put away the dishes, I couldn't help but worry. That just wait and see was too ominous. Then came the day when all the dissatisfaction and anxiety I had been keeping trapped inside blew up in my mother-in-law's face. It was at a family New Year's party. Kyle had many uncles and aunts. Family gatherings were always huge, so once a year they rented an event space at a nearby hotel and threw a New Year's party. There we line up a bunch of tables together and eat dinner together. This time the event space came with a karaoke set. The elder members of the family went one by one drunkenly singing their favorite oldies until my mother-in-law suddenly spoke out. The party sure is in full swing. Let's have Anna Delcy sing a song for us. She has been practicing her singing on her own this whole time. I'm sure it must have been for today. The whole family cheered and laughed. My mother-in-law had probably gossiped to the entire family. I'm sure the entire family had laughed at me behind my back and commented how I'm going secretly because I'm not good at singing. That must be why the family reacted with cheers and laughs when she first called me out. I won't let her get away with this. Just like everything else I've pushed through, I'll go through this for the sake of Kyle and our daughters. I will make sure she gets what she deserves for trying to humiliate me in front of everyone. I stood up, expressionless. Come on, pick a song you like. I took the remote control and selected my song. When I began singing, the laughter immediately stopped. Taking a deep breath, Ave Maria, Jungfrau mild. That's right, I chose to sing Ellen's third song, Schubert's Ave Maria. The song's lyrics tell the story of Ellen Douglas, the Lady of the Lake. As she was being chased by a cruel queen, she sang to Mother Mary to pray for her safety. Just like Ellen Douglas, I wanted to escape from my mother-in-law. This is the sound of my prayers. The song expressed the feelings I had been keeping in my heart. When I reached the end of the song, Kyle's family erupted in applause. Looking around, I saw everyone was on their feet.
Amazing. To think I could listen to this song live, and from so close. Kyle also began tearing up. Overwhelming by the standing ovation, I took a bow. Once the music ended, the room was silent for a while. There's no way. My mother-in-law's voice trembled. This, practicing on her own? Making me think she was bad at singing? She obviously did all that to trick me. She claimed I had set her up. So she had this tactic up her sleeve too. She was trying to isolate me, wasn't she? My mother was falling apart. She lifted her head to the ceiling, and her eyes floated around. I was actually in the gospel club in university. Kyle and I first started dating because he was attracted by my voice. But postpartum thyroiditis had damaged my vocal cords. Suddenly unable to sing, I would go to the karaoke box on my own to attempt to restore my singing abilities. I had heard from Kyle that there would be a karaoke set at the party, and I had a feeling his mother would try to use that to pick on me. And my guess that she would try to force me to sing in order to make me the laughingstock of the family was correct. I had prepared myself for this. Everyone else was touched by my song, but my mother-in-law was obviously upset. That's enough. A voice I knew very well spoke up. It was my husband, Kyle. Mom, all you care about is what others think about you. All you care about is blending in and looking good on the outside.
He continued.
I was always sad and lonely. What I wanted to do in my spare time, my dreams for the future, my major in college, you would just force me to do whatever you thought was most socially acceptable. Instead of caring about your son, you cared about everyone around.
After suppressing all these feelings this whole time, Kyle finally opened his heart. He turned to me.
Anna Delcy, when talking about Mom, I said that people don't change, right? People are flexible when they're young, but the older they get, the more stubborn they become.
Then he turned back to his mother.
Mom, we lived together, but I'll need you to move out. I love Anna Delcy. Trying to shame her like this in front of everyone is something I can't accept as the head of our family. No, I can't accept it as Anna Delcy's husband. People don't change, so my family won't be meeting you anymore.
Kyle's mother opened and closed her mouth as if to say something, but no words came out. In order to not make the entire party awkward, I was ready. I felt like I was back to being the old me. Gospel is the song of the soul. Does anyone have a song they want to listen to? Or a song they want to sing? Let's all sing together. Karaoke can be sung by one person, but it's also fun when sung by everyone together. Kyle's uncle, who was tipsy, stood up.
That's right. Let's lift our spirits by singing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, Ode to Joy.
Kyle's uncle's singing was ridiculously out of pitch, but he seemed to enjoy himself. Singing isn't about being good or bad. It's about how it feels. I did my best to match him in a harmony. Partway through, the rest of our relatives also joined in. Luna grabbed my hand and spoke softly.
Mom, I want to be able to play this song on piano one day.
I squeezed her hand back. My sister-in-law also came up to me later.
You have a beautiful voice.
I smiled in reply. I believe singing is great both when done on your own as well as when done with everyone. While the rest of us celebrated the new year with a bright collection of songs, my mother-in-law slumped in the back gloomily. 1 week later, Kyle found a one-room rental. He made his mother move in there to reflect on her actions.
You should be able to afford this place with your savings. From now on, you will be living a life that I guess will make you ashamed to face society. What kind of life do you have to live to be able to face society anyways?
Though it's a bit ironic, Kyle's mother was isolated. Kyle's uncle said that for next year's family New Year's party, we'll rent a place with a piano so Luna can play for us.
Sing for us again next year. Ode to Joy was really fun. In the second half, everyone joined in, but in the beginning, you and I were able to have our own duet.
Kyle's mother doesn't seem to regret what she'd done, even though she's stuck living on her own now, so we don't plan on inviting her to the party next year. She's been isolated by not just us, but by her entire family as well. Actually, Luna and I have something we've kept secret from Kyle. Expecting his mother to pull a stunt like that, Luna and I went multiple times to the karaoke box together to practice singing Ave Maria before the New Year's party. Taking after me, Luna was not just good at piano, but she also had a wonderful singing voice. No matter what I do, my voice isn't what it used to be, so Luna and I made a plan. When my mother-in-law told me to sing, I secretly slid the karaoke machine's second microphone to Luna. She sang while I lip-synced. No one noticed, so our plan was a complete success. But now, because of that, I have to sing in front of everyone at the New Year's party every year. Karaoke became necessary training to maintain my voice.
Next year, let's duet UB40's Red Red Wine.
I'm going to have to break my back practicing. Solo karaoke while sipping on a gin and tonic. It's the best. Cheers to life. Bravo Ave Maria.